darkness, one day the sleeper will awaken. You're afraid of change. I don't know the future.
Have you ever thought
I didn't come here to tell you how this is going to end. I came here to tell you how it's going to begin. I'm going to hang up this phone, and then I'm going to show these people what you don't want them to see. I'm going to show them a world without you. A world without rules and controls, without borders or boundaries. A world where anything is possible. Where we go from there. Where we go from there. Where we go from there. It's a choice I leave to you.
We're getting things warmed up here. It's Radio Free Canada. Welcome to another show.
Good morning.
Hi,
Please
Robert,
sit down.
Darren Howard with the video clip. Hang on just a second.
Radio stations. Good. Now, I have told the Prime Minister that we will shut them down within 12 months.
As you will see, sir, they're not in fact outside of the law at the moment, sir.
Then they soon will be, won't they, Mr. Fredericks? You see, that's the whole point of being the government. If you don't like something, you simply make up a new law that makes it illegal. Point of being the government. If you don't like something, you simply make up a new law that makes it illegal. Point of being the government. If you don't like something, you simply make up a new law that makes it illegal.
If we are to survive, a new balance must be found. In normal times, evil would be fought by good. But in times like these, well, it should be fought by another kind of evil.
And that's how we start off Radio Free Canada. Hi there, I'm Darren Howard.
I'm Robert Nisbet.
And the music is right here in the background. We've got a great show for you, a special Thursday edition of the show today. And we're going to get right to it again because you know what? We got very little time today. And yesterday we ran long and we got in trouble. So we're going to do it really quick, okay? We're going to get into this. The disclaimer, okay? If you think that big companies, big corporations, and big government have your best interests at heart, if you think that everybody is telling you the truth, and you think shopping at Walmart and making slave labor opportunities more profitable for big corporations, then stop listening now.
If you think McDonald's is a restaurant.
If you think McDonald's is a restaurant, you deserve a break today. Go for it.
Or if you think Fox News is fair and balanced.
If you think that Fox News is news, then please stop listening right now. Don't email us and tell us that we suck. We know because we are part of the revolution. And this is Revolution Red Pill Radio. It's the fastest hour in talk radio. I am thrilled today. This is a good day.
I am too. We have a special guest online today.
Yes, we have a special guest online, and we are talking about, and we've been announcing this on the net, and this got some major international hits. We got people who are asking us, what are you talking about? Tools for Justice. We've got David and Randy on the phone. Hi, you guys. How are you doing?
Hey, Darren. How are you?
Hey, we're doing good. You're sounding loud and clear. That's awesome. I'm liking this new technology. Okay, well, Tools for Justice, we're going to get right to it. We've got them up on the internet, and I've got their link listed on Radio Free Canada right now. Tools for Justice empowers you to stop the IRS and federal bank illegal activities. What do you think of that, eh?
I think that's a darn good idea.
That's what, you know what? When we start there, we're looking for solutions right here at Radio Free Canada, and that's what we're about. We're about solutions. We're not about problems, right? Well, we discuss problems, but...
Yes, but we prefer to talk about solutions to the problems.
Yeah, we prefer to talk to about it. And in the studio today are the founders of the Tools for Justice on the internet right now. It's Gary and Randy. Sorry about that, Randy. I had a moment. Is he there?
David and Randy.
Yeah, I'm sorry. David and Randy. I was thinking about yesterday.
Oh, that must have been it, yeah.
Good show yesterday. Okay, so Dave...
He's one of us anyway, so it's all right that you said Jerry. That's true.
You guys are a big network, and, it's exactly what I said on the internet, and I always said what we need is 100,000 screaming lawyers to take it right to the government. Is that what you're doing?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
What we've started with is this simple concept. Let's stop protesting and start prosecuting.
Oh, I love it. Go for it. Okay, so what are you doing? Just tell me, how did you start out? Where did you start out at?
Well, it came out of personal experience. We've both in our personal lives have had issues where we've had to go head-to-head with our friends at the Internal Revenue Service and deal with issues in administrative processes and civil action. And what we realized is that doesn't do any good because there's corruption.
Yeah.
And so our strategy is that it's not administrative remedy or civil lawsuits, but criminal complaints. So our tactic is that individuals by the thousands would band together and file criminal complaints before federal grand juries to investigate the crimes, and then we indict and prosecute the criminals, backed up by an army of legal activists to demand that justice is served to the people, and so that our empowerment is in our numbers, and then we couple that with our teeth, which is the thousands and millions of criminal complaints that result in prosecution. And it's that simple. The answer is that the people in numbers are all banded together to restore the rule of law. So again, we've stopped protesting and we're going to start prosecuting.
And that's what we need to hear. That is so inspiring, just thinking about it. I can see some federal guys turning over in there. Well, not getting some sleep tonight because of such things.
Now, I got a question. Have you successfully prosecuted any of these cases?
Yeah, we successfully prosecuted, or you said you're at the point of starting to gather together a force to start pressing criminal charges. Is that what's occurring?
Yeah. If you would let me explain a little bit.
Go ahead.
The remedies that we have come to, the solutions that we've come to, are the result of 9 years of full-time litigation.
Wow.
So there's a lot of learning involved, this learning curve, and a lot of preparation.
Oh my goodness.
And you just don't prosecute the IRS or prosecute federal banks or file thousands of lawsuits against the federal banks, to ultimately achieve satisfaction mortgage by just falling out of bed.
Yeah.
We've engaged in a lot of learning, and we've done a lot of preparation.
Yeah.
We are working with the FBI to have them investigate the IRS, and then to support us to going to a federal judge who will sign off on our criminal complaints, then go to a grand jury, obtain indictment, and then probably what we are going to end up having to do is to work with a grand jury to have them appoint a special prosecutor and to appoint a special judge to prosecute these cases. Otherwise, we will be blocked from remedy because a U.S. District Court judge can dismiss a grand jury indictment.
A district court judge. Now, okay, so we're talking about U.S. law here.
Well, this is U.S. law.
Okay.
Of course, this is talking about IRS problems. There are, multiple public corruption problems, but the processes are actually very similar. Like in Canada, for example, both Canada and the United States of America, their governments, both are made up of British common law.
Yeah.
But we have essentially the very same processes of law creation and law interpretation. We have the very same historical roots, and our systems are really not very different. They might have different names and faces, but when you strip away the veneer, they're basically the same. And as a result, we have problems. Fortunately, in Canada, there have been some more conservative, policies, which ultimately have, been better for the Canadian people than what we have, here. I mean, really reckless, government policies here. David, would you like to fill in? I have to answer the door. I'll be right back.
Okay, sure. One of the things that Randy mentioned is the whole thing of how we're trying to address the issue of misapplication of federal law. And essentially, either in the United States or in Canada, people are just downright frustrated. We're in a situation where people feel like there's really not much you can do. The old phrase, you can't fight City Hall, or the politicians are just going to do whatever they're going to do, and there's really not much we can do about it, is a standard theme that I think probably is as much true over the other side of the border, no matter which side of the border you're talking about. And the issues that we're trying to address are bringing the power of law back to the people. If you go way back to even the time of the Magna Carta and the lords that were involved in creating that very simple document to show the king that the king isn't the ultimate rule of law, the rule of law is the king. We're starting with that premise, and issues that we used to take for granted in this country, such as, or in both countries, such as the initiating of grand jury indictments and being able to prosecute, having the right to prosecute for criminal activity that now seems that you have to give to some legal team to deal with, really has not fundamentally changed. It is still ultimately the right of the people to be able to do so. And so what we're attempting to do is we're attempting to build an army of legal activists restoring the American dream. And we mean that as the general idea that people in any country believe of having the rights to our property, the rights to our life, and the rights to our happiness, and pursuing that happiness to, live a decent life in a civil society. We're encouraging people to join the revolution, but even more than that, to understand, as you alluded to as you started the show, that we are the revolution. And we have to begin to work together in mass numbers if we're going to achieve remedy. The reason that the bureaucrats and the politicians and the judiciary all feel like they can get away with what they're getting away with is because we aren't organized. We aren't unified in spirit, purpose, and action to achieve our goals. And this has to be where we start. And so within Tools for Justice, we are really encouraging people to just join and become a free member.
Okay.
Make your statement that you want to be part of getting your freedom back, of getting your life back, of getting your right to your property back. And then those that have something that they could legitimately file as a criminal complaint, do so. And what you'll have is you'll have it backed up by thousands and ultimately, eventually millions of people who are standing there watching as you file your complaint, as you prosecute the criminals. There'll be a whole bunch of people watching, and it won't be any way for the powers that be, as we call them, to be able to weasel their way out.
Yeah, and to be able to run and hide, which they seem to do quite a bit when they're doing that. We just got to, you're hitting on some awesome subjects. We've got to take a really quick break right now, and we're going to cover a couple of things that you just said about that right here at Radio Free Canada. So just hang on the line. David and Randy are on the line right now from Tools for Justice. Make sure you get on there and get informed about what's going on.
Absolutely. It's a great site.
Okay, so we're going to take a really quick break right now. We've got music right here off the vinyl turntables to make sure that you've got your drive home all in one place. You got music, you got entertainment, you got information, you got songs they won't play on corporate radio. Welcome to the revolution. We've got it. 100,000 screaming lawyers coming down for you. Radio Free Canada, we're going to be right back after this. Just hang on. The drive home continues. from Billy Squire, music that they will not let us play on corporate radio in the dark, because that's where we are generally kept. I'm a mushroom just like everybody else.
Yes, they're feeding us manure and keeping us in the dark.
Yeah, I know. The information is getting out there. On the line today, we've got David and Randy from Tools for Justice at toolsforjustice.com. You make sure that you get linked up with them. Good to have you along, guys.
Thank you. We're glad to be here.
Yeah. I'm just taking a look at the notes here. We were talking just about what you guys are doing and how you can gather together people to start, flooding the system, making sure that the system understands there are a great many people upset about what's going on within the financial and the tax world and the IRS. But does that affect us here in Canada? And more importantly, what about people like the people in the UK or the people in Greece? That's my question here.
Well, I'll be glad to answer that. And the answer is this absolutely is a worldwide issue because there's a lot of reasons for it. But let me kind of put it into some context over the centuries. And that, most importantly, might be to start by going back and understanding where the history of jurisprudence comes from. It, in many cases throughout the world, comes out of the old phrase that used to be very common, that the sun never sets on the British Empire. And if you go back a few hundred years, the empire of the world was Great Britain. And even Canada and the United States have our roots in the British system of law and jurisprudence. We realize that a lot of that has changed, but there are some commonalities, in fact, no pun intended, that are in both Canada and the United States and throughout much of the civilized world. In that common law is a framework upon which our legal systems are based. In Canada and the United States, England, the British Isles, over into India, down into Australia, and many other parts of the free world.
Really? Now, okay, so in India, too, one of the largest...
India was the British Commonwealth.
And their legal system is the same as ours? I find that incredible. That's amazing.
Well, in the general roots of it, it would have been very similar because it was a British colony for many decades.
Okay.
So you see, so there's this commonality of legal jurisprudence, which foundationally was all connected with the same general structures. And so you start from there, and out of that, we have many of the same general traditions of law. Now, please keep in mind, I'm not a lawyer. Randy's a paralegal, but the principles of law that we're talking about are ones in which foundationally the rights of criminal complaint, the rights to be able to defend yourself when you've been illegally treated, all really come down to the rights of the individual. And we have gotten this thing flipped on its head that we think that in order for us to be able to do anything legally, we have to have an attorney. The fact of the matter is that's not true. And what we need to do is we need to become educated. We need to become educated with the fact that ultimately we have rights, and those rights are determined by natural law, by those rights don't come from somebody telling us we have the rights, but that we have unalienable rights that are given to us by our Creator. And those rights don't change no matter where you live in the entire world, even if the government in which you are a part attempts to suppress those rights.
But right now we're looking at the United States that seems to be suppressing legally your right to do anything, the NDAA. Not to detract, but I just want to cover that really quick. Did you have an opinion on the NDAA? I mean, is this on your radar screen?
Absolutely. It's bad law. It's that simple. And it's an attempt to impose in an area where ultimately the government has really no place to be. And legitimately, what they're doing is they're usurping their authority. If you were to go back to the Declaration of Independence and read how many times the words tyranny and usurpation were used in the Declaration of Independence in terms of how the King of England and the Parliament was overstepping their bounds.
Yeah, we were reading
it's happening again.
Yeah, the language that they used in the Declaration of Independence is inspiring. You know, what they're rising up against then, it seems to be what we're rising up against now.
You're totally correct. It's
You know-
the exact same thing over again. There was a philosopher. He was actually Spanish, but he came to the United States. His name was Jorge Santayana.
Uh-huh.
He made the statement that those who are not willing to learn from history are destined to repeat it.
Yeah, and I
And
totally...
that's exactly what's going on right now. Is if we don't figure this out quickly and just get our ducks in order, we're going to repeat some very dangerous things that have happened in places like China and Russia and little countries in Africa, where certain individuals in Nazi Germany, where certain individuals took authority and they rused the people by kind of taking advantage of their desire for personal peace and affluence, and forgetting that, as Thomas Jefferson said, that the cost of liberty is eternal vigilance.
And that's
Got to get a handle on this.
That's an absolute truth. Eternal vigilance, the cost of liberty. We always talk about freedom and, you know, our freedom to protect freedom. Go ahead, man. What did you have?
What I wanted to say was, hasn't the common law been usurped by the law of the sea or maritime law?
Is the common law usurped by sea or maritime law? Okay.
Okay, I'm eager to jump in here.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm going to hold back on maritime law a little bit, even though it'll factor in, and you'll understand in a moment why. I was going to say there are basically two types of systems of law, but you threw in the monkey wrench, which is maritime law, which is it's another version.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, the British common law really stands opposed to what's called a statutory system of law. And the systems are as different as night and day. Under the British common law system, whatever the statutes mean is interpreted by judges. And so ultimately, in all systems of government where they have British common law, the actual law of the land is not the written statutes. It's the judges' interpretations of the statutes. That system of law stands opposed to what's called a statutory system of law. And in the statutory system, the statutes are generally few in number. They say what they mean what they say. Common, ordinary people can read these statutes and interpret them. They know what the law says and what it means. But when you come to the system of British common law, you typically have aristocracy families who hire legislative draftsmen to write the language of the statutes. And these statutes are typically numerous in number, and they are written intentionally to be broad and open to interpretation. And then you have the Parliament or the Congress or whatever. They dutifully pass these statutes, oftentimes without even ever reading them.
Uh-huh.
Then you have the king or the president, the executive. The judiciary says that the king or the executive can do no wrong. So when the king or the executive or queen or whatever interprets these statutes however they want, the people come in and say to the judiciary, but the statute says. And the judiciary says, we cannot hear you because a judge has not interpreted the statute for you. Then what happens is called, then what we do is we go on an Easter egg hunt, searching for case law that supports our position. What we encounter is called stare decisis schizophrenia.
Okay.
Stare decisis is rule by precedent, which means that the lower courts are supposed to follow the guidance and the rulings and opinions and decisions of the higher courts.
Okay.
But what we actually find is that the lower courts oftentimes don't follow the higher courts like they're supposed to. And in fact, each of the courts operates as their own fiefdom. So they regard the decisions and opinions of other courts as merely a recommendation. But it gets worse, because not only do the decisions and opinions between the courts conflict, they conflict within their own court systems.
Okay, I get
and so what you end up with under British common law is rule by precedent, not by law. And typically what you find is that the judges tend to interpret the meaning of the statutes in accordance with the policy of the executive that's in charge at that time. And this is how it has worked throughout history.
Now we're seeing this. Okay, now so what we have now, just to break it down into layman's terms for a second, is a judge who makes up their own mind on how they're going to do things, and we seem to be caught in the middle because they keep pointing back at other judges or other lawyers. Is that what we're looking at?
Yes, they do whatever they want.
Okay. Oh, hang on a second. Are we getting this? Yes, we're getting this. Excellent. Okay, so now we're taking a look online, okay? Birkenhead County Court. Did you see this over in the UK? In Birkenhead County Court, this is in the UK, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to, I'm going to throw this link up on Radio Free Canada so you guys can see it. 6 people stormed the court and served the judge with a citizen's arrest order.
Yes, I saw that. Yes, I did.
We saw that.
Okay. I mean, come on. This was one of those stellar moments in legal history. What do you guys think of that? Is that is this the direction we're going in?
Yes, and that and more.
And more.
Explain why.
Okay.
At the time that the United States and Canadian constitutions were created, 80% of all investigation and prosecution of crime occurred by private grand juries. Of course, these grand juries were made up of aristocracy family members. You know, ordinary working people have just largely been excluded from government altogether within the entire British Empire.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, the powers of prosecution are private. Always been private. I don't know how this works exactly in Canada. It's probably the same as what we experience here in the United States. But say if you call a police officer and they come to your door and you make a complaint, the police officer will tell you, I cannot act upon your complaint unless you sign a written complaint. So the police officer has no power unless we delegate it by our signature. And so when you go back, hundreds of years ago, with 80% of all crime being investigated and prosecuted by grand juries, the other 20% would be where people just, they found the criminal and summarily dealt with them one way or another, or they didn't get caught or whatever. But people didn't, necessarily go through some formal process. They just, dealt with the criminals and their crimes in such a way that it wouldn't be happening anymore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Currently, what we have within our governments are these various obstacles or barriers that are created to generally try to prevent us from accessing grand juries,
Uh-huh.
from prosecuting. But what we have in fact learned is that we, the people, have the right to bring a criminal complaint to the government. But then the prosecutors in government, what they have is the first right of refusal to prosecute.
Okay.
But if they exercise that first right of refusal, then they have no authority or power to obstruct or interfere with our access to a grand jury or our ability to prosecute the crime ourselves.
Oh,
The way that works
okay.
is that, like here in the United States, there's Supreme Court case law supporting prosecution ex rel. And what that is say an individual brings a criminal complaint, the federal or state prosecutor exercises first right of refusal, then the person bringing the complaint has the legal authority to prosecute the complaint or to bring in another individual or attorney to prosecute on behalf of this individual in the name of the federal government or the name of the...
Okay, and then this is something that can work in what I always say, any first world country or British-based country. This is something that we could use in Greece, something that we could use in the UK?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Tools for justice. We're talking about the actual tools that you use in order to do this and how it works.
And that's the kind of information we need to get out to our listeners.
Hey, sorry, I'm not going to cut you off, but we do have to take a quick commercial break because we're going to run late, but I don't mind. Can I keep you guys around for an extra couple minutes here?
Sure, not a problem.
Because we're getting the information out there, and that's the important part. And it's legal stuff, so you got to understand where you're coming from, right?
Yeah,
okay.
absolutely.
If you're going to go to court, just like we are, and you're going to take these guys to court, you got to understand where you're coming from. So coming right back, we're going to have them here. David and Randy are from toolsforjustice.com, and they're going to be here to present a few more things that we got questions on, and how to sue the tax man. That's coming up. And then talking about foreclosures. It's going to be interesting stuff. Hang on. Radio Free Canada. We'll be right back after this.
Here I am again in this mean old town, and you're so far away from me. And where are you when the sun goes down? You're so far away from me. You're so far away from me. So far I just can't see. You're so far away from me. You're so far away from me. Alright. I'm tired of being in love and being all alone when you're so far away from me. I'm tired of making out on the telephone 'cause you're so far away from me. You're so far away from me. You're so far I just can't see. You're so far away from me. You're so far away from me. Alright. so far, I just can't see. You're so far away from me. You're so far away from me. Take it out.
Right there, Radio Free Canada. Welcome back. It's your drive home show for everybody with a revolution in their brain. You know, it's a good thing, right? It is. Darren Howard here, Robert Nisbet standing right by my side. And we're talking about the legal ramifications. Coming up tomorrow, we are on location, so we will not be recording for our weekly roundup. We're going to be pushing that to Monday. It is Mock Harper Monday, where we take a look at Stephen Harper and all the foibles that he has. And
all the problems he's been having with his cabinet in the past week.
Yes, he's had Vic Taves, of course. Don't Taves me, man. Has been in the news here, and our legal ramifications of what they're trying to do with the internet and how they want sweaty old guys to stalk you on the internet.
Yes, and the way they're spinning it, the way they're going to do it is to protect the children. But we'll talk about that on Monday.
Yes, we will be mocking abjectly the government and various people in power just for the revolutionary at heart as Red Pill Radio continues. Talking to the guys at toolsforjustice.com, and that's where you go on to get the information and get the links that we're talking about right here. And we're getting filled in some blank spaces that I never knew, and I really like that part.
It's always good to be educated.
Yeah, I know, to actually know what you're talking about. I always say that's the red belt thing. We're almost educated, and that makes us dangerous.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got Randy and David on the phone right now, guys. Just before the break, we touched on it, and we were talking offline behind the scenes here. And we talked about Iceland and Greece and your guys' take on that. And that's the direction that we're going in. So let's just take a look at that really quick.
Yes, this is particularly relevant because Iceland and Greece, and in fact, most of the countries in the world have all been facing the same problem, where the international bankers conspired with the government officials to create lots and lots of debt, enormous, crushing debt, which would enslave the people in, essentially all the countries of the world, for generations to come. And Iceland, they did something amazing. They said no.
Yeah.
But I mean, what they actually did is they used powers of referendum and initiative, which are the same powers that Switzerland uses, which has a statutory system of law, where the people themselves engage in what's called direct democracy.
Mm-hmm.
What they do is they vote 4 times a year, and they actually make the laws.
Yeah.
And they modify the laws, and they repeal the laws.
Uh-huh.
They interpret the laws, and they enforce them also.
Now, is this the same kind of law courts that we have, like in the British sphere of the empire, or is Iceland the same thing?
In Iceland, I don't know specifically in terms of their courts, but I do know the way that the people acted. They utilized their tools of referendum and initiative to take control of the problem.
Mm-hmm. And throw their bankers in jail. We saw that part, too.
Well, and also their president. Their president fled to Europe, and they extradited him, brought him back, and prosecuted him.
You know what? Every time somebody says that, it just makes me smile.
Oh, that just makes me smile. Gives me a warm feeling inside to actually see a president get prosecuted and incarcerated.
Okay, so we're talking about something that we can take to other countries and that we can apply to other countries around the world.
Including our own countries.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, well, no, trust me. I am all about the Canadian law and the law courts around here, just like you were describing earlier, the judges just seem to do what they want. Okay, and they just get away with it all the time. I was so thrilled to see Iceland bind together as a country and stand against the bankers and the government themselves for putting their country into such a bad situation. That complacency thing, it gets under my skin all the time. I want to see many thousands of people in the streets getting upset about this.
Well, what we need to do is we need to get to the place that we finally put enough pressure as individuals coming together in such a way that we put enough pressure on the judges that they're more fearful of what's going to happen because of that pressure than they are fearful of working within the system of corruption in which they're a part.
There you go. The government should...
The whole thing.
People should not fear their governments. Governments should fear their people. And I always say the law courts are right in there. That's my opinion.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
The bottom line is accountability.
Okay.
And when we don't take responsibility to enforce accountability, then government runs amok. Or business runs amok. Same thing.
Okay, so you've got the IRS running amok right now, all the way across, across North America, across the United States, and that's one of your major focuses.
It's actually been run amok for over 70 years.
Yeah, I could say that one for sure. Since the development of the Fed, is that not right?
No, that's actually not the case.
Oh.
And the reason being was because here's a little bit of history. The forerunner of the IRS was created in 1862, and then was eventually disbanded.
Wow.
Then was recreated again, I believe, in 1913. And maybe 1909. Because there was the corporate income tax in 1909, and then there was the personal income tax in 1913. But it wasn't until the middle to late 1930s that the Social Security taxes were, created as statutes. And then it wasn't until the 1940s that the IRS began misapplying the statutes.
To interrupt just for a second, Randy, here's an interesting little piece of trivia, gentlemen.
Okay.
If you were to go back, we've actually found some research that validates this, but if you went back and you looked in history of the United States in terms of how many people filed a federal income tax return in 1939, you would be surprised to know it was only 15.1%.
What?
American people.
Is that right?
That's correct.
That's crazy.
Go to toolsforjustice.com and read the blog that I wrote there on Donald Duck and FDR.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, right on. Actually, I'm going to jump on that right away, but go ahead.
Well, what happened was that FDR, 2 days after Pearl Harbor, went on the radio and he gave a speech, which we have in that blog, and you can actually hear his little statement that he made during the fireside chat 2 days after Pearl Harbor, in which he said it was the privilege of Americans to pay their income tax.
Oh, a privilege. How nice.
That it was their duty or that it was their obligation because of law, but it was their privilege to, and within 2 months after that, Walt Disney created a movie in which Donald Duck was the key, the actor of the movie, telling people, pay your taxes to stop the Axis.
Oh,
I remember that.
By the end of the war,
do too.
It was 89.1%.
That's oh my goodness.
Now that's the power of propaganda.
Yeah, Walt Disney, though, we've called Walt Disney to task on a few issues as being part of the propaganda machine that's out there. I don't know where you guys land on that one, and I personally think that them and Cosmopolitan should be sued. But.
Well, look at Disney World. That's a creation of an ideal American dream city that doesn't really exist in reality.
But we're going to be talking about Walt Disney and sexual discrimination, believe it or not, coming up in a broadcast in 2 weeks from now. So that one's coming up. Sorry, I don't mean to dissuade there for a minute, gentlemen, but when you mention Walt Disney, my hair goes back up on the back of my head.
The thing is remember back then, the major means by which people got their news was the movie theater.
Yes. Yeah, and the
radio.
Yeah, so you had newspaper and radio, which they had total fascist control over. If you've ever seen the CRTC and what we went through in the 80s when I started off in broadcast in college way back in 1984, they have this control over media on what you say, what you do, and the information like what we're talking about does not get out there.
That's
right. No, it doesn't.
And that's why...
You can see the power of those small pieces of media tool were very, very influential in getting people to kind of line up. And Randy could go into detail about control fraud that's going on in a number of areas. This is one of the most significant control frauds that's ever been laid upon the American people.
Okay, there's a new phrase for us.
Most people have no clue.
Okay, there's a new phrase for us, control fraud. Can we cover that really quick here? Is that...
Yes. What control fraud means is that the CEO of a corporation rigs the financial incentives within the organization to use the company as a financial weapon against society.
Whoa.
And in the government, control frauds are where usually what you find is fascism, where there's a union between the government and large corporations, military-industrial complex, oil companies, automobile manufacturers, pharmaceuticals, etc., etc., and Monsanto and with genetic engineering crops and so
big pharma.
Yeah, big pharma.
Big pharma would be another one.
Yeah, big pharma. Yes.
Yeah, there's so many industrial complexes
the AMA,
out there.
American Medical Association, FDA, and then also you find it even with the Department of Education, the Department of Energy, etc.
One of the really big ones is the SEC. And
oh yeah.
Oh yes.
And the banks.
Yeah. The FCC, the CRTC, the Canadian
FCC,
equivalent.
Sam Edward Charlie, SEC.
SEC. Oh, security.
Oh, securities exchange.
And what you find is that typically the statutes may say one thing, but the functional, legal, and regulatory environment of government operates in such a way that it allows these corporations to just repeatedly get away with crimes. An example would be BP and the oil spill.
Yeah.
The Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah.
They ended up paying a few paltry millions of dollars fine for creating billions of dollars of damages.
Yes.
That's typically how it works. There's never any real accountability, and the corporations just repeatedly get away with activities that if you or I did them on a smaller individual scale, we would be prosecuted and incarcerated. But the corporations, they just end up with some little fine or something, and they just keep going.
And we see this constantly all the time, is that these major corporations break the law. Our government itself breaks the law and gets away with it. There's not a judge that's standing up against it. I'm starting to wonder how the law courts have any credibility at all. But
in fact, what you find is the government itself operates as a control fraud.
Yes. Okay.
The so-called division of legislative and executive and judicial, supposedly there's supposed to be checks and balances, but in actual reality, they just operate as a control fraud with backroom deals and bribes and kickbacks.
Yeah. Okay. And you know what? Just like, with WTPN, I would love to book you guys in the future when we can really get into that one.
Okay.
Talk about, we can get you guys back again?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Anytime you like.
Because this is one of those conversations that we can never get over within an hour. I'm keeping you guys for a little bit of overtime right now. But that control fraud, there's a phrase that we really need to get onto.
Absolutely. And one of the things we found with big corporations is they find it's easier to pay the fine than to actually take the steps to prevent accidents or misdeeds in the future.
Yeah, like paying a fine is going to stop Monsanto from poisoning our future generations.
Agreed.
And that's one of my problems here. Just before, we got a quick break here coming up in a couple minutes, but let's just lay this out really quickly, the tax thing. And then we'll get back and we'll cover it a little bit more in depth. You're talking about the IRS and their ability to collect taxes, is that right?
Well, okay, what we're talking about is that the IRS doesn't follow the definitions in the...
Okay.
We're not tax protesters. We have no issue with any of the federal taxes. But what we have an issue with is the IRS is misenforcing the federal employment taxes against people who don't have any federal connection pursuant to the definition of employment in the Internal Revenue Code. The IRS is misapplying these taxes as if we're liable for them. And as a rule, they're taking like 25% of our pay.
Uh-huh.
And then illegally. And we can prove it. We have 7 years of full-time litigation against the IRS DOJ, or Department of Justice Tax Division, and we've solidly beat them. And
wow.
But what has resulted is in appellate courts around the country, these courts render unpublished decisions that make no reference to the issues that we raised on appeal, and then they say that our appeals are frivolous. This is no longer a civil issue. This is purely a criminal issue. And so now we're working with the FBI, and we're moving forward. We're going to prosecute these people.
Okay, and you know what? Let's just take a really quick break because that's an awesome place to take a break. We're going to come back and we're going to talk about the prosecution of that, and we're going to get into the foreclosures thing coming up right here.
Absolutely.
And that's a good thing. Tools for Justice, Radio Free Canada right now, and we'll be right back with more of the Revolution Radio to make sure that your brain cells are prepared to take on the big guys. Because that's what we're good at, right?
Don't be afraid.
Do not be afraid. We're from the internet. Music right here from Pink Floyd, and a little apropos right now. We'll be right back with toolsforjustice.com right after this.